Thanks for joining us. I'm Kelda Yoon. Ontario's self-proclaimed crypto king has been arrested and charged with fraud. 25-year-old Aiden Platersky is accused of bilking investors out of more than $40 million. Nicole Brockbank has been tracking the story since allegations of fraud against him started surfacing nearly 2 years ago. She joins us now with more details. And Nicole, what is the latest?
Yes, so Kelda, Durham police have charged so-called crypto king Aiden Platersky with fraud over $5,000 and laundering the proceeds of crime. Platersky was released on a $100,000 bail yesterday, posted by his parents. His bail conditions include surrendering his passport and not posting on social media about financial matters like investments. One of his associates, Colin Murphy, who I've also reported on, was also charged with fraud.
This has been a long time coming. Take us back. How did we get here?
Well, Kelda, I first reported on Platersky almost 2 years ago after some of his investors forced him into bankruptcy. The investors were trying to track down more than $40 million they'd provided Platersky to invest in cryptocurrency with the promise of high returns. So far, the bankruptcy process has recovered about $3 million for roughly 160 investors. That investigation also found Platersky only invested about 2% of investor funds and that he spent nearly $16 million on himself, renting private jets, buying luxury cars, and leasing a lakefront mansion.
And there have been several other key developments over the last 2 years in connection to Platersky, including a kidnapping.
Yes, Platersky was allegedly kidnapped in December 2022. Last year, one of his investors and 4 other men were charged with the alleged kidnapping. We were also sent a video taken of Platersky visibly beaten during the kidnapping. And on top of that, the lakefront mansion that Platersky used to live in was at the center of a lawsuit involving a Canadian NBA star. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander successfully sued to get out of his $8.4 million purchase of the home, arguing he wasn't told about threatening visits to the property by those looking for Platersky before he bought it. And then last fall, I reported on Platersky jet setting to the UK, Miami, and Australia despite his ongoing bankruptcy. At that time, Platersky was presenting himself as a professional streamer online.
Now, as you mentioned, Platersky was let out on bail. What do we know about what he's been up to?
Well, as I said, Kelda, he's been very active on social media throughout his bankruptcy, and it doesn't seem like the charges have changed that. Platersky has posted a few TikTok videos of himself since he was released on bail yesterday.
And we know, Nicole, a press conference will be held tomorrow in Whitby. What do you expect to hear from investigators?
Durham Police and the Ontario Securities Commission worked together on what they say was a 16-month investigation into Platersky, dubbed Project Swan. Tomorrow, I hope to hear more about what went into that investigation, like how many investors Platersky allegedly ripped off and how much of their money police allege he defrauded.
All right, thanks so much, Nicole. Our Nicole Brockbank reporting.
Thanks, Kelda.
The Ontario government is toughening the rules for impaired driving. In some cases, drivers could lose their driver's license for life. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has the details.
The Ontario government is trying to send a message, adding a lifetime ban on holding a driver's license for impaired driving causing death. The province says 1 in 3 road deaths involves impaired driving.
Impaired driving is so preventable. Call a friend, call a taxi, take public transit. It's that easy.
The Minister of Transportation will include this in new legislation. The extended license ban is on top of the jail or prison sentence that someone could already face, followed by a shorter license suspension. Right now, it's 1 year for a first offense.
If you do contravene or break the law, we will come down very hard on you.
A member of MAD Canada was at the announcement, fully in favor of whatever tougher measures are added. Her son was killed by a drunk driver decades ago after buying his girlfriend a Valentine's gift.
He was killed instantly, and so I've had to live with that loss for many years, and it still hurts today.
The government is also requiring convicted drunk drivers to have an interlock device installed in their car. Without that breathalyzer, the vehicle doesn't start. Right now, those convicted can add the device or choose not to drive for a year. But one criminal defense lawyer is unconvinced these changes will make a difference. He spoke to CBC Radio's Metro Morning.
The way, in my opinion, to actually stop this and really hurt my income as a defense lawyer is to just put interlocks in every car.
The minister already announced another part of his legislation with up to lifetime license suspensions for another crime, carjacking, the lifetime ban for a third offense.
I don't think, however, it will be effective. I don't think it will change the rates of auto theft.
But opposition parties were mainly supportive of the proposed changes for impaired driving.
It's really, a case of making sure that people know that it's the wrong thing to do and underlining that.
I think it is a step in the right direction.
Some of this does seem to be a step in the right direction. I mean, families deserve justice and they also deserve accountability.
They want to see more exact details of what's in the legislation. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Parts of downtown were without power for a few hours today after a squirrel got too close to a hydro pole.
Yeah, we heard it was a squirrel that got fried on the lines up there.
So that's squirrel over there, on the floor, right beside
I didn't even see it there, but there's
a squirrel.
That's a squirrel.
That's the squirrel.
It looks like they got some police tape there too.
The poor squirrel in question could be seen lying dead on the street beside the utility pole. Fire crews were called to the area at King Street East and George Street at around 10:40 this morning for reports of a loud bang. And Toronto Fire says the pole appeared to have caught fire. The outage impacted about 6,500 customers between Rosedale Valley Road and the Gardiner and from Church Street to the DVP. Toronto's women's hockey team trying again to advance to the PWHL finals tonight. The team facing Minnesota in Game 4 of the best-of-5 semifinals series. It was a series many fans expected Toronto to sweep after they won the first 2 games, but they lost Game 3 on Monday, and tonight, well, it's gone to overtime. Lane Harrison is at Peaches Sports Bar in the West End, and Lane, you're anxiously watching this game with all the fans.
It's been an anxious night indeed, Kelda. Anxiety you might be able to see on some of the fans over my shoulder in the bar here. Now I can bring you this update. We are going to double overtime in this game. It's been a defensive battle all night for more than 60 minutes of hockey at this point. And as you mentioned, the team was expected to sweep this series. And although this night may not be going the way many fans expected, a lot of them tell me there's still much that went right with this season.
This was the scene at Peaches Sports Bar tonight in the city's West End. Another example of the PWHL's soaring popularity in its inaugural postseason, with fans here and across the city cheering on the squad and a successful first year.
All of the stadiums have been full. I'm hoping that next season we get a bigger stadium because we've got the fans to fill it. So give it to us. Like, the women are amazing, the hockey is amazing, the moves are amazing.
We were at the home opener and it was really, really emotional being there and seeing all these women who've worked so hard to have something like this actually come to fruition.
Toronto's day began with news no fan base wants to hear.
Well, that's a huge loss if she goes down for Toronto.
The team and league's biggest star was ruled out for the rest of the playoffs. Natalie Spooner was knocked out of Game 3 in the contest's final period. She led the league in both points and scoring this year, and is also favorite to be its first MVP. Analyst Helen Hislop says her injury isn't just a blow to Toronto.
I know that she has worked so hard, not only to get this league up off the ground, but to get her into a place where she can be the superstar of the league. I think that is a major loss to the team for the remainder of the playoffs, and also really tough for the league at large when you lose your #1 goal scorer and your #1 points getter for the entire season.
With Spooner's help, Toronto finished first in the league, meaning the team got to choose Minnesota as its playoff opponent. While the series is continuing longer than many expected, that's not necessarily a bad thing, Hislop adds.
I think a lot of people were expecting a sweep, but I'm really happy that there isn't a sweep. I think that it shows that there's more competition in the league.
So as you heard Hislop say there is competition in this league, as we are seeing tonight with this game going to double overtime. And we'll have to wait a little bit longer to see if Toronto is successful. Lane Harrison, CBC.
Welcome back. The Waterfront BIA has laid out a list of recommendations to make the area more fun after a new report shows some tourists find it a little bit underwhelming. The recommendations include more lakeside restaurants, nightlife venues, and floating docks. Brittany Billette has the details.
If they put in more restaurants and stuff here, you could make this really booming.
That's exactly what the Waterfront Business Improvement Area report lays out. In its new retail review, the BIA compared Toronto's waterfront area to the ones in Baltimore, Chicago, San Francisco, and Washington, and it found that the city has untapped potential.
We usually say that if Toronto wants to be considered a great city on the world stage, it's going to be because it maximized the opportunity it has here on the waterfront.
The report says the city should focus on creating waterfront seating, including floating docks, and it makes recommendations for more nightlife destinations, pop-up shops, food halls, and more.
One thing we are a little bit light on is waterfront patios. There's actually only 5 patios that are right on the water, and that's what people expect. If you come here and visit from Europe, you expect to sit on the waterfront at a patio.
This restaurant sits right beside the lake with coveted outdoor patio seating.
Having that kind of view, having good ambiance, and having good food is really what's going to bring people here.
But despite its prime location, it can be hard to draw in people who live close by.
This is more of a touristy area. I would love to see more locals come through.
The retailers have to up their game. If you think of the great retail streets that are emerging in Toronto, think of Ossington, for example, or think of Queen West, College Street, or the Danforth, or even parts of Bloor Street. You've got a mix of interesting places to eat, interesting places to gather.
This urban designer says the city can learn from its own success stories, and it should focus on ways to maximize the waterfront in simple ways by creating ambiance.
I don't know if you know the Italian expression dolce far niente. It's sweet to do nothing, meaning a place where you can come and you can do a lot of things for free.
It's not just harborfront.
The Waterfront BIA says the city and businesses have an opportunity to improve the area now, since there are a series of redevelopments and developments happening along the lake.
To make this a world-class waterfront, everyone's going to have to work together. It means all 3 levels of government, means all the different property owners working from the same playbook.
Brittany Billette, CBC News, Toronto.
Second Harvest hosted a truck pull challenge today. Mayor Olivia Chow taking part in a team of 10 that was tasked with pulling a 20,000-pound food delivery truck. The teams raced to pull those trucks across Nathan Phillips Square to raise funds for Second Harvest food rescue and redistribution efforts. Well, many kids are eagerly anticipating the end of the school year next month, but for some, that means less access to school meal programs that help struggling families. That's why Food Banks Canada and an army of volunteers are working hard to make sure kids in need don't go hungry this summer. Tyler Cheese has more.
Now is the time to support us. The need is greater than ever.
This week, Food Banks Canada has invited hundreds of volunteers to the International Centre in Mississauga. They're packing food kits to send to children in need who won't have access to food at school over the summer break.
During the summer, those school meal programs that a lot of families rely on shut down, and so it's a really tough time for families who are struggling.
Food Banks Canada says hundreds of thousands of children rely on in-school food programs supplied by food banks, and it's often their only consistent source of healthy meals. This comes at a time when food bank user numbers are at an all-time high, both in the GTA and across the country.
Nearly a third, or about over 600,000 visits to food banks every single month are for children. So children are accessing services of food banks all the time. Families with kids are overrepresented in food bank use.
As for the volunteers, they're made up of groups representing several socially minded corporations.
This is just one way that we can support the cause and be able to make sure that there's a support system in place in the short term to be able to help.
I think it's really important to be part of any organism or to support any organism who are fighting against hunger and food insecurity.
Arctic Co-op is one of Food Banks Canada's partners that helps supply food to more remote parts of the country.
We deal in Nunavut, Northwest Territories, the Yukon, where some of the food insecurity rates are among the highest in the country, and just so happy to be able to pitch in a few hours of volunteer labor to help this cause out in a really tangible way.
The goal of the program is to share 200,000 food packs.
They go to food banks from coast to coast to coast, over 215 communities in every province and every territory across the country, and those food banks determine the best way to get them out to kids.
Some of the packs will also be supplied to summer camps and other community programs for low-income families. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Mississauga.
Mississauga's municipal election is less than a month away. As the mayoral hopefuls hit the campaign trail, residents from the neighborhood of Malton say they want to be a larger part of the conversation. Tali Ricci has more on why the community often feels forgotten.
Mississauga has seen a lot of growth over the past few years, but in the city's northeast neighborhood of Malton, community members say hardly anything has changed here in decades.
Malton, if you look at it, it seems like it's been frozen the last 30 years. Malton's not really part of the development curve that's happening in the rest of Mississauga.
I live in Malton since I landed in Canada. I think it's 22 years. The things are there, the limited, but the populations are increasing. Needs to be more attention here in this area.
The community of Malton sits between the city of Toronto to the east and Brampton to the north. Malton has a population of over 35,000 people. It's also a diverse community, with census data showing 50% of the population are immigrants. And while it's part of Mississauga, often the residents don't feel that way.
Technically, we're part of the city of Mississauga, but physically and even economically, commercially, people are, I feel like, tied a bit more to Toronto and Brampton and even Vaughan.
Lots of people even asking me, no, it's Mississauga. Really? Malton is in Mississauga? Because lots of people don't know the Malton is in Mississauga. It's not like they're part of the Mississauga. It's a separate community, but it shouldn't be.
Residents say some of the issues include safety, transit, and the need for more affordable housing. But perhaps one of the biggest problems in Malton is a lack of grocery stores. Currently, there's only one major grocery store in the community after several others shut down.
The Food Basic is gone, the Longo's is gone, here's the Chinese grocery stores, it's gone. Now we do have only one store here in Malton. It's a big issue in Malton because it's very hard for us to do the groceries, especially on the weekend. Sometimes there's no stuff on the shelves because of the population and crowd.
The one grocery store is part of this mall, Westwood Square, which some would call the hub of the community. It's made up of small businesses that tailor to the different groups that live in the neighborhood. But the parking lot has also been the scene of various crimes. And in the basement, Peel Public Health Sexuality Clinic has been closed since the pandemic.
The mayor is come. They need to be give some attention to the Malton and see the issues and should address the issues.
These longtime residents say it's difficult for people here to feel motivated to contribute to their community when it often feels forgotten by the politicians who serve them. The hope is that the new mayor can help shift the area's reputation.
I just hesitate to tell people that I live in Malton because the other people respond is just, you're living in Malton, like how can you manage? I just want to say the people to be proudly that I live in Malton.
Whether they'll be an active participant in seeing better changes for Malton, that's something we have to wait and see.
Residents here will be watching closely in the coming weeks to see whether their community is included in the conversation on the campaign trail. Voters head to the polls on June 10th. Tali Ricci, CBC.
This is miniature poodle, number 16.
And they are one of the smartest breeds, thus the name Sage.
This is Sage, the black miniature poodle, just named Best in Show at the Westminster Dog Show, the first female winner since 2020. And she also won the non-sporting category earlier in the competition. The dominant showing is an extra sweet treat for her breeder and handler, who is retiring after 45 Westminster competitions. And Colette, we are inching closer and closer to the long weekend, and it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, that we are. You don't have to say it with hesitation. We've got this one.
Looking good.
Yeah, let's go ahead and show you your weather headlines here and give you an idea what's to come as we head into Thursday. I know we get ahead of ourselves at this time of year. We're already making our plans, right, as you're looking towards a holiday weekend. So how about just Thursday? Thursday looking pretty nice as we are going to get more and more clearing through the overnight. A few areas close to the lakeshore with a bit more cloud cover in the morning, but otherwise great improvement. And then let's get it out of our system. Yeah, my play on words there. We have a system that's going to be moving through on Friday, bringing some showers. Even that looks like it's going to be weaker than was anticipated when I was looking at it on the models earlier in the week. And then an improving weekend forecast. And if it's hard to tell, that is a grill, a barbecue there. It sort of looks like one, I guess. All right, the record high for this date in history in the low 30s. Our record low, though, well, it's not freezing or below, but pretty close to back in 1984. Our normal highs and lows, so 19 and 9. And we're going to see our readings over the next few days around that, or frankly, a little bit above for the daytime highs. A look back at today, some cooler air off the lake. So Sarnia, that number was down a bit, Goderich as well. I'll take you a little bit further west of the Great Lakes to this next system that is going to be making its way towards us as we get closer to the long weekend. But the timing of it, as it's coming in for tomorrow, it's not a problem. As we get into Friday and play this out, you see that it's even breaking up and becoming somewhat less organized as it's coming closer. So Friday morning, southwestern Ontario, some scattered showers I'm looking at, and then we'll see a few of these as we go into Friday afternoon. But I do mean a few, less and less. And what's happening is more of that moisture seems to be now like it's going to track south of the lower Great Lakes. So they'll experience it there, but there won't be much to it for us. And then once we can kick that out of here, we should see a decent amount of sunshine as we go into Saturday and Sunday, and it looks like even for Victoria Day, on Monday. Overnight temperatures tonight, 12 degrees for the low in Toronto. Oshawa perhaps slightly milder there, Barrie down to 10. And our daytime high for tomorrow, UV index, you got to start watching that, getting very high on us. So a high of 21. The overnight lows are a little bit above seasonal 2 through this period, but I think you care more about the daytime highs. Slightly chillier on Friday just because of a bit of an extra cloud cover as that system makes its way through. And then after that, at least some low 20s for us, Kelda. Looking good.
Definitely looking good. Thanks so much, Colette. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I will have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. Have a great night, everyone.